What up, guys? Just getting the camera set up here. I'm going to check out, see how well you guys can see everything. And we're going to go ahead and get this harness modified for standalone use. I'm going to log into my tablet over here first and pull the channel up as well so I can see you guys chat. See how this looks. Guys, let me know in the chat if that looks okay. Maybe I'll move this whole thing forward. There we go. That looks pretty good there, I think. All right, so we're going to get rolling right at 4 o'clock. I'm just going to leave the camera set up here, and we'll get started. I'm going to jump into the chat on my tablet over here on the other side. There we go. Let's see what this looks like real quick. Yeah, please. So again, guys, I'm going to get started right at 4 o'clock. We'll get this thing cut up, and I'm going to maybe move over a little closer here so you guys can see what's going on right here. Most of the work I do is right in this area. So. There we go. What up, guys? Let me try to turn the camera so it takes up the whole screen. Nope, that didn't do it either. No filters. All right, I see 3 of you guys in there. So I think that looks pretty good. Maybe we can zoom in. There we go. There, that's probably better. You guys will be able to see what I'm doing here. All right, let me go check it out on the live. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right. So like I said, guys, another 10 minutes. If you just hang out, I'm going to start right at 4 o'clock, and we'll get rolling and get this harness modified. All right, so I just checked. It sounds like the fan's a little loud. I'm going to turn that down. There, that's probably a little quieter. All right, let me go check that. All right, you guys got questions? Don't be afraid to jump in the chat there and throw up some questions. I'm actually going to move my tablet over a little closer, so while I'm doing this, I can see any questions you guys might have. Get the relays out here. There we go. Just don't, as long as I don't burn that thing with my soldering iron. So like I said, don't be afraid to jump in the chat and ask some questions. That looks pretty good. All right. I'm going to try a couple different camera angles here real quick, guys. So the screen might get a little bit jumpy. Let's try that. Nope, that ain't doing it either. So we'll switch it back the other way. And sorry about this, guys. There we go. That looks pretty good right there. $3:51. It's about another 9 minutes. We're going to get started here. Let me turn this so you guys can see me too. Let's see how that looks. They can't really see me either, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm going to grab a couple more of these. It's a little warm in here. All right, just a couple more minutes here, guys, and we'll get started. Go. All right. These are just the little clips for the relays so you can mount them. Put them in here. All right, almost ready to start here, guys. Just give me another couple minutes. Yeah, I think that works. Oops. All right. Got 7 of us in here. I'm going to turn this just a little bit more so you guys can see me. There we go, that works. a couple more minutes here, guys. Just about ready. All right, guys, it's just about that time. We're going to go ahead and get started. All of you guys on there now, thanks for joining. I've never done a live before, and I thought this would be pretty cool. I know a lot of you guys have seen my other video where I've modified the harness, and when I'm doing it in that kind of format, I kind of have to chop it up into bits and pieces, but I figured if I just did a whole video live and you guys could watch me do it, then you might get a little more insight on how to do it. So just to start off, this is just a straight up J35 harness. Came right from a wrecking yard. I didn't even pull this one. It's actually for a customer, but excuse me. So the first thing I do when I get a harness, especially from a wrecking yard, is I go through and make sure all the plugs are on there. I don't want anything cut off. The stuff that we're going to be cutting off, I want to make sure I'm the one cutting it off, not anybody else, to make sure that it's not anything we're going to need. So that's the first thing I do. Second thing, make sure all your connectors are clean, not smashed. Sometimes like this one here, I'll bring you guys in a little closer. This one's kind of dirty, so we'll blow that out with some air and get them all cleaned up. But basically, guys, here it is. Here's the J35 harness. I'm going to show you guys how I modify them for standalone use. We're going to add in 4 relays also. So the ECU will plug in here. The relays will sit next to it. And you'll have a relay for your ignition, a relay for a fuel pump, a relay for each fan. Some guys with Honda swaps only run one. In the buggy world, we always put 2 fans on. So that's what these 2 relays are going to be for. So I'll show you how to set the relays up after we get everything kind of prepped and ready and get it going. All right, so I want to move the ECU out of the way here for a minute. Razor knife selection. So I just use a Husky razor knife to cut all this stuff open. But I make sure that I use, look, it's a very dull blade. That way when I get into this harness and I start cutting things, I'm not cutting into the wire. To cut the wire, you got to push really hard. Always make sure you use a dull blade. If you use a sharp blade, it's going to cut real easy, but you're probably going to slice into the wires. So ask me how I know that. So I always use I always keep a dull blade around for this. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is pop this off. This is the retainer that holds it to the firewall. So just push that out like that. And then there's 2 pieces of split loop here. There's the long piece and then the short piece. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take your knife and start to cut that open. Oh, did we glitch out? What happened? Now let's take a look at the phone here. Oh yeah, we're still live. All right. Let's refresh this. All right, so anyhow, like I said, dull razor knife. Go ahead and cut this first little bit up open. Don't cut any wires. So you have to make multiple passes just to cut the tape. Underneath this, which you can throw away, you're going to find a junction connector that's all taped up. You're going to want to cut that one open as well. Get it out of there. Pull it up. We're actually going to remove this junction because a lot of this stuff we're not going to use. I think there's only 2 or 3 wires that we're going to use in here, and we'll solder those back together. And I know, listen, there's a whole big thing that goes back and forth about solder versus crimp. I solder everything. I was always taught to solder. I've been soldering for 30 years, and it's just what I know and what I do. So if you want to crimp them, you can. I don't guarantee they're going to hold. I prefer to solder. So right here along the split loom, you can see where it's open. I'm just going to drag my razor knife right along there and open this up. And then open it up and pull it off. And normally I keep these. I just go ahead and pull all the tape off of them, the factory tape. Because when this is done, it's going to be all taped back up. Tape selection. Don't be cheap. That's what I use for my tape. Make sure you use Scotch Super 33 or a really good brand of tape. It's $4 or $5 a roll, but it's worth it. By the time you finish the harness up, it's going to last. So the Harbor Freight tape does its job, but it's kind of horrible in the elements. So next thing I want to slide this down. Oh, you guys can see that. I'm going to go ahead and remove all these clips that hold it to the firewall, and I'm going to split the big loom open. So to remove those clips, I usually just use my pick, stick them in there, and just break them. Because we're not going to reuse these. Break the lids open. We got that one off. That one off. And we'll get this one off. So again, guys, if you're in the chat, jump in the chat if you got a question. I'm looking at my tablet over here, and I can answer some questions for you if you guys got a question. So, put my pick aside. I can see the opening down here, so I'm going to go ahead and drag my razor knife. And I'm going to open this whole thing up. All the way down. It's nice and slow, take your time. Don't need to be in a big rush to do this. Don't want to cut any wires, especially ones you're going to keep. So now we got to the rubber boot part. So we're going to push a little harder, and maybe make 3 or 4 passes to cut this boot open. There we go. Once you get the boot, you can kind of separate it and just knife that boot out of there. Once you've got it open far enough, I can just take my cable cutters, clip it, pull it out, throw it away. If you're using a firewall application, if you're putting this in a car, I guess you guys could save this stuff, pull it all the way off and reuse it. In the sand car world, the buggy and off-road stuff that I do, we don't reuse these, so I just throw them away. So now that that's done, I can go ahead and pull the split loom off. And we're going to round this off right here. We've got some cut. And like I said, I'm going to pull all the tape off of this and we're going to save it. If you guys don't wear gloves when you do this, your hands are going to get filthy. So be ready for that. So there's a lot to be said about these harnesses, and I know there's a lot of motorsports guys out there that say, you know, get a standalone, don't use a factory harness. For me, in the sand car world, our object is to keep things as OEM as possible. Honda built things the way they did for a reason, and they're built to last. Even in the elements, in the sand, and in the off-road, these harnesses will last forever, unless you get some sort of an intrusion in them and it starts to corrode the copper. I have seen a few now and then that get kind of jacked up, but you know, for the most part, I've never had an issue with them. So now, we're going to move on to this junction right here. 90% of everything in this junction we are not going to use. So, for instance, this entire connector goes to the chassis of the car. This whole connector right here, all of this. So what I do is I just take my loppers, I'm going to cut the whole thing off. Just like that. And I know that's going to scare some of you guys, but again, all of these wires that are in this connector we are not using. So on the trash they go, off to the trash they go. Next connector, let's split this open. This is the factory speed sensor connector. Again, this is not going, this is for off-road use and standalone. So the factory speed sensor connector, bye-bye, we'll clip that off too. Now we're going to move further down here. So you have your chassis ground, which goes to the thermostat housing, and the starter wire. Again, we're not using the starter wire. It's going to be standalone. You can always run your own starter wire. What we are going to be using on this half of the harness is just the factory ground that goes to the thermostat housing. So I'm going to take my razor knife, I'm going to split this tape. We're going to hold that out of the way, so kind of pull it. This entire row of everything here goes to the automatic transmission. So we're going to take our loppers again. Gone. We don't need any of this. So now we're going to move on to the second, what I call the second leg. This is some of your coil packs. This is for that TPS sensor. This is for the intake air temp. This one here is for a perch control solenoid, which again in the off-road world we do not use. Clipping that off. And then the EGR should be in here as well. Again, in the off-road world, the square 6-pin connector, EGR valve. We do not use the EGR valve either. We're going to clip it right off. Later on in the steps, guys, we're gonna mine all that wire out of there. It's just really easy to take the loppers and just cut it off. Let's see, we got some questions. Ivan coming in good, awesome. Yes, I know how dirty your hands get. Yeah, right? So, good, I'm glad you guys can hear me good and everything's cool. Now, this entire plastic thingamajigger, bobber, we're not going to use that either. So, again, I just take my pick. I'm going to go ahead and open all these kind of doors, I call them. Just bend up, open all the doors. We're going to pull all this wiring out of here. This kind of bolts onto the automatic transmission. And again, this is for standalone use, non-automatic. So go ahead and open this whole thing up and get rid of it. So once you can get the door open, you can just go ahead and pull everything out of here. One more here, one more there, and one more right here. So just pull it, break it, however you need to. You can be nice and remove the pins the way they should, the clips the way they should. But again, we're not going to use this either, so off to the trash it goes. This junction connector we are using, as well as this one. They are going to stay. I used to clean the harnesses up. I used to remove these and solder them all together inside, but at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. So, all right. So now we are going to take our razor knife. We're going to split this open right here, and we're going to split it open all the way back. So this is all going to be exposed, and we can start removing everything that we're not going to use. Any more questions? Nope. All right, cool. All right. So there's another piece of split loom here. If you squeeze it and turn it, you can feel where the opening is. I can feel that the opening's right here. So again, I'm just going to take my knife, nice and easy, split that open. A little more tape. And again, the other reason why I like using a dull razor knife is because when you touch yourself with it, it doesn't split you open instantly. So ask me how I know that. Years of making wire harnesses, I've had quite a few razor blade cuts. So, back to this. This is everything we're not going to use. All this stuff that's in here, everything we cut off. So, we're going to split this open. Split that open. We're going to expose all these wires. And again, guys, I know this can get overwhelming because you see a bunch of cut wires. But always remember, this is just the automatic transmission stuff that we're not using anymore. Everything we're not using. This is kind of where wiring guys like me that have patience and understanding of what we're doing don't get so freaked out when we start cutting wires and getting things opened up. So, all right, so untape this a little bit. And again, we're going to save this ground. We're going to reuse that, but all the rest of this stuff is going to go away. Like some of it pulls right out. So here we go again. We're going to split this open. See, and it takes a couple passes for me to cut that tape, which is always a good thing. Nice and easy. All right. Don't know when the tablet keeps doing that, but that's okay. So again, like I said, guys, I know there's 13 of you guys in here now. If you guys have any questions, jump in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on it over here, and feel free to ask any questions about what I'm doing, or you know, if I go over something too fast and you don't get it, we'll slow down. All right. So now that I've got all this stripped open, everything's open, kind of just hanging out in there, all this stuff we're not going to use, you may be asking yourself, where does it go from here, and how do we get rid of it? Well, we're going to go back down here to this junction connector and this ECU plug. So here's another thing. If you guys are J-Series guys and you've bought a harness from any of the other manufacturers, or not manufacturers, but guys that modify these harnesses, a lot of times you're going to get an ECU and this connector is going to be full of hot glue with some wires sticking out of it, which I think is horrible. Those guys don't, and listen, I'm not talking crap on anybody else that makes harnesses by any means, but when you fill this thing full of glue, it's kind of janky, and it ruins the ECU if you want to switch it to some other car or some other, you know, it's just dumb. I take the time to make sure that I get the A-plug, because out of this plug, we're only using a couple of wires. And then that way, when we build the harness, you got an OEM plug there, instead of some hacked up ECU that's full of hot glue. So we'll get back to that in a few. Out of here, we only use, like I said, a couple of wires. So, all right, we'll go ahead and split this thing completely open now. Any more questions? Nope, no more questions. All right. Kind of unravel this stuff. Guys, and honestly, none of this stuff is rocket science. Personally, I'm a wiring guy, so this is what I've been doing for years. So I've made hundreds and hundreds of these J harnesses, B-series harnesses, K-series harnesses. I was making K-series harnesses before Hasport made a plug-and-play kit. I think my car was either the second or third car on the West Coast years ago to be K-swapped, and I made my own harness for it before anybody made an adapter harness. So I know a couple of you guys in my last video had a bunch of comments about where I get the power from. Where do I attach to the power? So the first thing, as soon as you split this open, you're going to see that right there. That's a factory crimp. That's crimping all the power wires together. So be mindful of that. That yellow with the black stripe, that's going to be our power lead that comes out that we feed to feed the harness and the ECU. That along with a few other wires. So we're going to take that and just put it aside. Next thing, up here, and guys, you don't have to do this in the exact same steps I do. You can do it however you want. But the next thing is this plug. This plug right here, it's the ABCDE plug, I think. It's the small connector, this one, and it goes in the ECU over here. This connector, honestly, you don't need any of it. It's all automatic transmission stuff. So you see some of it goes to this junction connector. I'm going to take my loppers and I'm going to clip it right off. Now, I told you before that we had cut a bunch of the automatic transmission stuff out of here. So what you do is just, I'm going to sit it aside and I start grabbing it one wire at a time, and I kind of put my hand here and pull. And as you start pulling, these wires start coming out. Because again, we clipped them off those other plugs on the other side. So I'm going to pull that one, pull it out. All these automatic tranny wires are coming out. There we go. There's another one. There's another one. You can virtually, pretty sure you can pull this entire connector out. Yep, that one's still just taped in there, so we're going to cut it over there. Actually, we can just clip this right here. This one. And then in this connector, you're going to find a black with a yellow stripe, which we're going to connect to this one. So you're going to clip that one off, sit it off to the side. We're going to use that for powering stuff up. But there we have it, that entire connector, that entire plug, gone in the trash bin. So now you can see we're starting to clean this harness up quite a bit. There's still some automatic transmission wires in these two plugs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our Bible out. So I know a lot of you guys have been asking, where to get the wiring diagram for J-series. So I have this book here. This is my Bible, kind of my wiring Bible. I've been collecting wire harness stuff over the years. What I like to do, like when I started doing J-series stuff, is I went and bought the factory service manual. Same thing with K-series. That's how I learned how to adapt a K-series harness into an EG before anybody had an adapter harness. Is I took both factory service manuals and matched them up wire for wire, the best I could. And we made it run. I did the same thing for J-series. I don't have the full factory manuals with me. I just have the pages that I use. And these are the ECU pinouts for J-series. You can find these online, you know, but if you guys want to see something kind of cool, this is my K-series folder from back in the day when I was making the adapter harnesses. Number 2 is the check engine light, number 13 is the fuel pump relay. So kind of cool old school stuff here, handwritten stuff that I did, you know, almost 20 years ago. I don't know why it's doing that. But anyhow, what we want are these. So this is the C connector and the B connector. So B and C. There we go. What's that doing there? Anyways. So B connector. I'm gonna put this here because the fan's on. So your B connector is your 25 pin connector. The way I identify these is if you look right at the top of the wiring diagram, there's 2, 3, and 3. So if you pull your connector down, you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, and 3. So this is your 25 pin. So to get these wires out of here, you have to flip your connector upside down, and there's a lock that holds it in. There's some little pieces here where you can, I just take my pick, pull it up, and you'll hear it click. You guys probably heard that click. And that means it's up. So then you can pick out the wires you don't need. And then I just run down the list. Start with number 1, 2, 3, and you just find the ones you're not going to use. You're looking for automatic transmission, EGR valve, like I said, anything that we're not going to use. So the first one, as we run down the list, these are all injectors. We're keeping all that stuff. The first one we come to is pin 7, and that is for the EGR valve. And it tells you, on a 99 harness, it's pink. On a 2000 to 03, it's blue and red. So in pin number 7, which is right here, we're looking for a wire that is either pink or blue and red. And in this case, it's blue with a red stripe. So we're going to take our pick, go right into the end of the connector, release it, and pull it out. And these ones I just sit aside until I finish gutting all these connectors, and then we'll go ahead and pull all the wires out again. Alright, what's happening here? Close this. Sorry about this, guys. For some reason, my live went down on my tablet. There we go. Get it back up there. Alright, so anyhow, we got the EGR wire out. This tablet's freaking out. So the next one, right next to it, is number 8, and that's the low slide automatic clutch pressure relief solenoid or control solenoid. That's white. So we're not using that one either. We're going to go ahead and pull it out. So how we do that, just grab our white wire, get our pick in there, release the pin, and the white's out. Next, as we go down the line, any more chats, any more questions? How many people are watching? 9. All right. So again, guys, if you're in the chat, jump in the chat if you got a question. Number 9. That was the, we're keeping that one. Number 8 was the automatic tranny. So now we're moving down to the rest. VTEC solenoid, we're keeping that. Number 13. Number 13 is the low side automatic pressure control. It's for the tranny. Number 13 is green and red. So number 13 is just below 4. So I go to number 4 on the top row and go right down below it. And it tells you the wire color. Green with red. So there's the green with the red. Again, I'm going to stick my pick in here. And we got it out. Number 14. blue and white. Also for the automatic transmission, we're going to remove that one too. It is blue, the white stripe, which is right next to the other one. Same thing, put your pick in, take her out. All right, so next page. So we went through this whole page, we're done. We're going to move to the B connector again. We're still in the same connector. Number 17 is red. That's for the low side clutch. So look on our diagram, 17 is the second row down at the very end, and that's blue, or I'm sorry, that's red. So we're going to remove that one as well. Red's out. The one next to it is white. That's also, or green. That's also for the automatic transmission. Put our pick in there. Remove it. All right. Next one is number 19, which is down here at the bottom. It is the fourth oil pressure switch for the automatic transmission. It's blue and yellow. That one can go out as well. We got it released and it's out. Let's see what else we got here. Green, red, blue, yellow. Next one is 24 and 25, which are the last two in the bottom row. Those both go to the automatic transmission. One's red and blue, one's brown and white. We're going to pick those out of there. They are right there. Red and blue, brown and white. They're the last two. Go ahead and pick these out of here. All right, now that's it for the B connector. We can push this back shut, latches everything else in, nothing else will come out. B connector's done. No questions? All right, cool. All right, here we go. C connector. C connectors, there's only a couple wires, so not as many as the B connector. All right, C connector out. Same thing in the bottom. It's got a retainer. I'm gonna pop that up until it clicks. You'll feel it or hear it click open. It's open. And here we go. So the only ones we're using here, and guys, I don't know these by heart, even though I've made so many. I always refer to my Bible just so I don't make a mistake. The first one is number 6, and that's the EGR. Detects the valve lift for EGR. It's number 6 with my diagram. So it's top row in the middle, number 6, and it should be white with a black. There it is, white with a black. Flip our connector upside down, put our pick in there, undo it, release it, and it's out. Still no questions, all right, cool. You guys can hear me, everything good? Give me a thumbs up or, let me know if you can hear me. All right, where did we leave off? EGR. Okay, so EGR's out. We're going to come all the way down. All these ones are still going to need crank sensor and stuff. You're going to use all that stuff. Map sensor, everything. So that's it for that page. Next page is the last page of the C connector. TCP, camshaft sensor. We're using all that stuff. Here we go. Number 24 is the automatic transmission fluid temperature sensor. Number 24, it's blue and yellow. Go to my diagram. Number 24 is on the bottom row, middle. There it is, blue and yellow. It's coming out. Blue and yellow. And it's out. Keep going. Engine coolant temp, we're using that. So that's it. That's all you're taking out of this connector. Push that back done. These are done. Put your wiring diagram away for now. What I like to do now is take the ECU and I'll just plug it in. Kind of gives me a basis for what I've got going here and how I'm going to clean these up when I start to tape this stuff. Next, we're going to take that junction connector that I showed you guys. In here, we've got a brown with a yellow, and that's like a logic ground. We're going to reuse that. So we're going to clip it. You can see it comes out of here. Going to leave that there. Also pull that to the side. Now that we clipped, remember we clipped all these wires down here. I don't know if you guys can still see these. Yeah, you can. Good. We're going to start pulling these wires that we removed. So one at a time, just grab them, give them a yank. You'll see they start coming out. 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 That one's out. That one's out. Out as well. Blue and white's wants to stay. You're going to pull on a couple and they're going to want to stay in there because they go a little further down like the EGR ones. So we'll get those clipped out as well. So now you have this junction connector that's still here. So you're going to start pulling on some of these because they're clipped down there as well. Yellow, it's out. Start trying to fan them out of here one at a time. Oh, it's another connector I forgot to cut, guys. So see, sometimes I even make mistakes. This is also a connector that goes to the chassis. What I like to do is pull that back a little bit. Clip that right off as well. That's why some of these aren't wanting to move out. Questions? Sounds good. Okay, sounds good. Awesome. There we go. Now they're coming out. So this one, this brown with the yellow, goes to the ground connector. We're going to save that because it's going to solder back to this one that we cut off of here. So basically what this junction connector does is it just connects a bunch of wires together. And these are the only two we're going to be using. So what I'll do is take these and twist them together. That way I know to solder those back together before we're done. That one's out. That one's out. There we go. They're all coming out now. One that's left is also another ground. And that is also going to go back up with the same color, brown with yellow. So now we've basically removed all the automatic transmission stuff for the most part. There's a few stragglers here for the EGR that are down a little further. We'll move on to those in a few minutes. No other questions? Okay, cool. So, now that we're at this point, I'm going to move this up here. I'm going to stick that over there. Got a lot of extra wires hanging around here. You might ask yourself, what are these? Well, we're going to find out right now. I like to try to just fan things out a little bit. So what you have here is you have white with a red, and that goes all the way to the ECU. That's for the ECU memory, it goes to the battery. So we're going to leave that out and put it up there. Guys, again, I know this looks messy. Don't let it intimidate you. It's all going to, you see at the end, this is all going to come together, and you'll be surprised. What we got here? Blue, white. So here's some more wires. What we're going to keep a few of these wires in here, and then a couple of them we're going to add on to, and we're going to run them all the way up out here. So we're going to show you guys that in just a second. So what you're going to want to do in this part is just kind of, here's your map sensor plug. Loop that out of the way. Just kind of untangle some of this stuff. Because like I said, again, a lot of it we're not using. So now we're whittling this down to just a few wires here. These are going to go up there. We'll kind of separate these to where they go, and then we'll go over them one at a time and I'll tell you why you do or do not need them. A lot of them go into this junction connector. Power lead. So that's that power lead I was showing you guys earlier. We'll leave that up there. All right, so coming from the back side of the harness back here, there's two wires that we need out of there. When you come up here, there's going to be a bunch of them. I'm going to show you which ones we use, which ones we don't. Let me pull some of this tape out of the way again. Okay, we'll start with this connector. We're going to go ahead and untape this junction connector. A lot of these wires that we clip for the automatic trans, they go up into this junction connector. So what you're going to do is just pull them out one at a time, the ones that are not connected, the ones that are already clipped. And then I just take my flush cuts and I'll clip them off flush. And just start weeding them out. Guys, remember, anything that we cut off down here earlier is all part of the automatic transmission. So if there's wires dangling out, you don't know what they go to, do not panic. We cut them for a reason. We're not going to use them. So there's some more wires that are going the other way. Move those out of the way. Make sure our junction connector is clean. That looks good. Let's see, we got a yellow and blue. It's clipped. Snip that off clean. Let's see here. So if anybody's got any questions. There's a blue and white that we can remove. Or green and white. All right, we're going to stop here for just a second, see if anybody has any questions. Hands are pretty thrashed already, but it's the name of the game. Oh, that light's coming in, isn't it? It is. Let me close this door down a little bit more, get a little bit less light. Still here, guys. Just let me close this door down so there's not so much light. There we go. That might be a little nicer. All right, we're back. No questions. All right. No worries. So this last little section back here goes to the second junction connector. Some of these wires that we clip, they go up to this junction that we do not need anymore. So we're going to go ahead and remove those as well. I'm going to slice them open. Tape cut. There we go. And again, like I said, pull the tape off of here. We're going to use it. We're going to reuse all the split loom that we can. All right, so we're just going to give these a yank. See where we go. No questions still. All right. All right, so by pulling on this, see how it moves this? It shows me where that wire is at. I'm going to come all the way up to the junction connector. There it is. We're going to find it. Nip it with the flush cuts. Pull it out. Same thing with this one. Nip it with the flushies. Pull them out either way. Alright, a few more here. They can come out. Blue and white one. If you guys are following along, if you have any questions, need me to slow down, let me know. I can talk a lot, but sometimes I just like to work quick. So. Alright, no questions. Sweet. All right. Another one. Let's not use that. No. So we got a few more wires down in here we're going to get rid of. And a few we're going to keep. So when you get to this point, you're going to find a yellow with a red stripe in here, and it's thicker than all the others. You're going to feed that back up in here. We're going to reuse that wire. That goes to the factory oil pressure light. So if you're using a buggy, you're in a buggy or a standalone situation and you want to use the factory oil pressure light, you can get yourself a light bulb and mount it in the dash, put one side to power, put the ground to this, and when you drop below, like, I don't know, what is it, 5 or 6 pounds of oil pressure, I don't know what the Honda ones are rated at, but it'll turn the oil light on. Usually by the time your oil light comes on, excuse me, it's already too late, but yeah, you get the gist of it. There's also another one in here that is white with a blue stripe. That's this one right here. We're going to pull that one out also, and we're going to put that over here with the alternator light. Just kind of push it up through here. Or with the oil light. This is the alternator light for the dummy light for your alternator. We're going to twist those together. And same thing. You put a light bulb in the dash, whatever. Put power to one side. This is the ground. When the alternator's not charging, the light will come on. Same thing as the oil. We're going to twist those together and leave those off to the side. We've got another one in here that's blue with a red stripe. It goes all the way to the other end of the harness, so I like to leave that one in there. I just clip it off. This is for the secondary fan switch, which is on the cylinder head. We don't use that. We use this fan switch. Phone's ringing. Hang on, guys. Oh, that's my sister. So, anyhow, sorry about that, guys. We're back. Secondary fan switch we do not use. You can, but we don't. Another one that's gutted. So as you can see, this is starting to get cleaned up in this area. There's only a few left. So this next one is red with a somewhat of a stripe, but again, it just pulls right out because it's from one of those connectors that was clipped. Here we've got yellow with blue. That goes into this junction connector. We're going to find out where it goes, grab our flush cuts. We're going to snip that right off as well. So we're getting down there, guys. Only a few wires left. Got another smaller yellow with red. And if you see when I pull on it, see how it moves this connector? It kind of tells you where the wire's at. Go ahead and snip that one. Not using that as well. There we go. We're really getting cleaned up in this area now. This one also yellow with red. If you trace it back to these connectors back here, it's for the EGR that we already clipped off. So you can go back, or actually it's for the purge control solenoid, which we clipped off. Rather than going all the way back and removing it, I just clip it off flush, and then it's still fine. So we've really cleaned this area up now. And this is going to be a kind of an area, not of concern, but we're going to use some of the wiring out of here. And it's going to run all the way up to the ECU. What I do is I'll use, no question still, cool. Let me check that real quick, guys. Oh, okay. So what I like to do is I'll use some of the wire that we clipped out to run up here for our accessories. So what we have is, I showed you a minute ago, is our oil pressure and alternator light. And then you've got a 2-pin connector here that's got a ground on it and a green wire. This is for the fan switch. This is actually going to run up to our relay pack and turn our fans on. This is on the thermostat housing, but that wire normally went into that little connector that plugged into the chassis. So we're going to take a green wire, we're going to solder it on here and run it all the way up along with the oil pressure and the alternator light. So those three are going to get soldered and ran up top. This is some power stuff that we'll get to in a few minutes. And then I'm going to show you guys how we make sense of all this. Get it all taped, start to tape it back up. And this is all going to come together real quick. So as for modifying anything on the back end of the harness, I literally just remove everything we don't need and I leave everything else OEM. You're going to use everything else, you know, O2 sensor, all that stuff's all wired. You don't need to modify anything past this junction point. You don't have to modify anything down there. Unless you're going with like bigger injectors or something and you need to change the injector clips. But other than that, you don't need to modify anything back there. So, now what I want to do is I'm going to go to my wiring pile over here. I'll show you guys this. This is what your ground should look like. You should have a big pile of wire down there and a big mess when you're done. Let's put the camera back over here. All right, that looks good. All right, so next step, we're going to take this green wire for our fan switch. We're going to strip it, twist the end, prep it for solder. I'm going to take both of these where I twisted them. I'm just going to clip them back, strip them. You can use strippers, whatever. I use flush cuts because I've been doing this so long I can kind of feel how to strip the wire. And then like I said, I'm going to reach down here and I'm going to grab one of these plugs that we cut out that has these long wires in them. And we're going to reuse some of this. So we're going to find a long white one right here. There's a long white one. We're going to flip it out. That's going to be for our alternator light. Find the long yellow one. That's going to be for our oil light. And find a long green one for our fan switch. There it is right there. So there's our three wires that are going to run up back inside the harness. So we'll go ahead and get these tinned up and ready to solder. So again, like I said, you can crimp these together if you want to crimp them. I don't. I solder everything. I crimp some stuff, like if I'm making Deutsch connectors and stuff like that, obviously I crimp, but all this is going to be soldered. My buddy Chris is, he hates solder. He's a motorsports guy too, he makes harnesses. Good friend of mine. So again, I tin both sides of the wire. I'm going to hold them together. Tin them up. Solder them together. And then got a solid connection there. Then you're going to slide your piece of heat shrink over here or tape, whatever you got. Tape it up, shrink it up. We're going to do the same thing with the yellow. Same thing with the white. Twist them up, get them ready to be tinned. Just kind of twist them up in the air so I can get at them. All right. I would have played some music in the background, but I think YouTube would have hit me with a copyright strike. So sorry if there's no music, guys. Got those tinned up. We'll tin up this yellow one. And again, guys, I've been soldering for the better part of 25 years. Something I do almost on a daily basis, so you can rest assured that my solder joints are good. I know how much heat to put in the wire. I know what, you know, a lot of times guys say that the solder joints will fail from overheating the wire. And what I've found over time is when solder joints fail, it's actually from where they strip the wire at. Right here where they strip it, they kind of cut into the wire a little bit, and then when they heat it, it also weakens it. So if you don't cut the wire when you're stripping it, a soldered connection should last forever. You've got guys in motorsports that make harnesses that crimp everything, which is fine. You know, there's not one better way to do it, I think, than the other. But those harnesses are plugged into an ECU, and everything in that ECU is soldered. So if all those components in that board that are soldered down can take the beating and the abuse, so can wire. That's kind of my take on it. So everything's tinned up. We're going to solder this white one. There's a little too much on there. Let's get that excess off of there. There we go. Let that cool down. Give it a tug. Ain't going nowhere. So same thing on this one. We're going to solder this up. So when I did my first J harness, it was actually for my own car quite a few years ago. And I actually just took a complete harness, put it on my motor, even with all the automatic stuff. It was in a sandrail. And then I just gave the harness and the ECU what it wanted to power on. And then it took me 3 or 4 months of messing around with my car to finally pull the harness off and start figuring out what I didn't need and gutting the harness of what I didn't need. So it took me a while to figure it out what was needed and what wasn't, but we eventually got it. There's another one that I can pull. There's a blue and white right here. So we'll clip that one flush off. There we go. All right, so these are done. For all intents and purposes, guys, I'm going to tape these up for right now. I will come back and heat shrink them afterwards. I kind of like doing both. I like to tape over them and put heat shrink. But for right now, I'm not going to completely button this harness up 100%. I'll just take a shot. That's what I get for not using the right tape. Here's some Super 33. Like I was saying earlier in the beginning of the video, guys, Super 33 is good tape. It stretches really good. It's pliable, and it's sticky. It holds its stick pretty well. It doesn't help that I've got stuff all over my fingers. I just kind of roll them like that. And like I said, I'll slide heat shrink over these afterwards, heat them up. I don't want to dig the heat shrink out right now. I'll kind of do that after anyhow. All right, so once these 3 are done, we're pretty close to being wrapped up and about to move on to the relay setup. So right here, you've got these 2 that I twisted together. This is power. This is power that it sends power to this junction connector and this junction connector, which goes out to both ends and basically feeds everything with power. So we need to solder these together. They're kind of lay back down in their own, the way they were formed. All those twists. I'm going to clip. I'm going to strip them. Twist them. And then I'm going to tin them up with solder because I'm going to take that power lead that I showed you earlier and it's going to come back and solder right there. and then that's what's going to feed the back half of this harness. All right, look at that. Nice and tinned up, ready to go. Man, still no questions. You guys got no questions on any of this stuff. Awesome. So I'm not sure if I'm going to publish this video yet. Like I have kind of showed in my other video how to get to like this point, but yeah, we'll see about that. So, like I was saying earlier, we're pretty much ready to move on to buttoning this up and working on the ECU and the relay side. First thing you want to do though is the wires that we're going to feed power to are this one and this black with the yellow. So I'm going to take both of those. I'm going to take them to about right here. And I'm going to clip them. I'm going to strip them all. I'm going to twist them all together. Now this part is very important. This is where you need a meter. So we're going to tone this power wire out. And I will just tell you this much about a J-series harness. If you have 12 volts power on the injectors and on the coils, that means everything else in the harness has power as well. Because again, in these junctions, those leads are all junctioned together. Sometimes Honda, when they made these harnesses, or whoever made them for Honda, they hide an extra power wire in here that feeds both of these junctions. And I will not have to power this, but we're going to find out right now. So I'm going to put my meter onto ohms. And we're going to tone out the power wires. So I'm going to take those wires that I stripped. I'm going to wrap them around one end of my meter. And then I'm going to pull this plug up here, and this is the coil packs for one side of the motor. So you can see these coils will have power. So we're going to slide down here to the O2 sensor. It's got power. Now we're going to come to the back half of the harness. I'm going to pull coil packs for, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but I'm just probing the coil packs on the back half of the harness. Got power there. Now we're going to try the injectors. There's the injector harness. Got injection on one side. And we'll check the, oops, sorry about that guys. We'll check the back side. That's it. We got power on everything. So, kind of cool. We do not need this extra wire, so I can pull it out. And I can tape this junction up, and we're good. That's all we really need a meter for. It's just to tone those out. Well, no questions. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this junction up. And we're good to go. Like I said before, guys, I'll come back and heat shrink all these. So back here, oh, there's one more wire. Ground. It was just an extra ground from the factory that was crimped in and ran to the connector we do not need. So we're just going to clip that off. So now, as you can see, guys, this whole area is done. We're finished it. Hang on a second, guys. Call him back later. All right. All right. Anyways, like I was saying, this area is all cleaned up now. We're ready to go. We're going to take our map sensor connector. We're going to roll it back across here. We'll take our fan switch connector. We'll roll it across here, along with our ground that we didn't touch. And then right here, I'm going to take some of this really good 3M tape. going to tape all these together. Kind of give it a little bit of a stretch just to hold it. All right, so then I'll come back through here and tape all this up like the factory would have. And then we've got our map sensor, fan switch, factory thermostat ground, and then all the factory stuff coming off of there. There's that blue and white that we don't need. We'll clip that one off too. So now that that's done, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to tape this up. Just a little bit of tape there. Hold that together. And then we're going to grab these. And you see you got your little Y connection here. And we're going to put some tape right here to hold this. Well, just like that, guys, this whole area is done. And at the end, after I heat shrink that wire, we're going to stick all this factory loom back over this stuff and tape it all up. And it's going to look perfect. So now what we're going to do is slide all this down. Move on to the relays here in just a few minutes. Oh, I forgot, we've got this ground here. This is those brown and yellows I was showing you earlier. I'm going to clip these off. Strip them back. Kind of measure that out a little bit. Clip it off. Give it a short strip. And solder these together as well. All right, now that that's all tied back together, should be coming through. All right, good. So now we've got a harness looking pretty good so far. I'm going to fish this white and red out. Again, this is the ECU memory wire. I'm going to fish this guy out of there. Go that side, we're going to keep that. Then these are the three we added: fan switch, oil pressure, and alternator light. We're going to go ahead and lay those on top here. Let me go ahead and tape this up real quick so I don't forget. Spencer Hoover, what up, Harvey? Would you happen to know what Bosch O2 sensor you run with a stock computer J35 swap? That would be the Acura TL Type S 32A. So is it a JDM swap? It doesn't matter. It's an Acura TL Type S. You can also get the one for the Honda Odyssey. All the 4-wire heateds are pretty much the same. They're all narrowband O2s. So yeah, just Honda Odyssey or TLCL Type S. Anything with a J motor in it, they're pretty much the same. First question, awesome. So again, guys, like I taped up back here, I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple pieces of tape around here to clean this up, hold it all together. Right there. Right here. We have a power lead out here. And we'll probably put one more about right here. As soon as I get this taped up here, guys, I'm going to show you how to do the relays. So I'm going to give you guys a quick brief. There's another TGR we didn't need. Let me snip that one. Forgot about that one. EGR, also not needed. We're not using EGR. And let me tin this power wire up. And then we'll move on to the relays. And I'll kind of give you guys a brief description on how relays work, what they do, why we use them, information online on what, how to use them, what to use them for, etc., etc. Back when I learned how to do all this stuff, there was no online. Kind of aging myself, but anyhow, there was no online resources for electronics and how to use relays, stuff like that. You need to get that information from a book. All right, relays. We'll move on to relays here. So, what a relay does is it allows a positive or negative signal to be amplified, is kind of the way I can break it down. So basically what's going to happen with a relay, let me grab one. Let me get one relay. This might help. This will probably help a lot. So I'm not holding up the pack of 4. All right. So what this relay does, it's got numbers down here, 86, 85. I call them up, down, left, right. I can draw them all out if I need to, but so I just take a relay and I hold it like this. I put 2 wires up, 2 wires down. So your left and your right are what activate the relay. The relay needs 12 volts to activate. Basically how this works is, I'm gonna flip it over. This is your input wire right here. This is pin number 30 on the relay. And I believe this is 87. But anyhow, whatever you put into pin 30 is only going to go into here and stop until you energize the relay. You ground this and put 12 volts to this, it's going to allow whatever you put in here to go out here. So like for instance, if you have like the fan switch, for instance, on this car, it puts a ground signal out. But I can't run this little tiny ground wire to the negative of the fan. It'll burn the ECU, it'll burn up, it won't work. So what I use is I use the negative wire. So how the fan switch works is one side of it's grounded. When the water heats up, it passes it through and lets the ground come into this wire. I use the ground on here and put 12 volt switch to here, and then it'll activate this relay. I put battery power here, and this goes out to my fan. And then when this thing energized, this is always energized when the key's on, but it has no ground on it. When that fan switch closes, it puts ground here, activates the relay, and takes that 12 volts from the battery that I put here and sends it out to my fan. So that's pretty much what I use relays for. There's all kinds of different configurations on how you can wire these. You can use them for power door locks, all kinds of stuff. Let me see who's calling me now. Somebody from Colorado. Let me take this. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, all right, what's he say? Sweet. Thank you for the info. Also, you're making me want another turbo bug. Keep up the excellent work and the bonus happiness. Right on. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. So, anyways, here's the relay pack. We use 4 relays. I explained this in the beginning of the video. You have one for ignition power, one for your fuel pump, and then one for each fan. Fan 1 and fan 2. How I'm going to power these. So you can run, so this is my 12 volt input, right? All the reds. They need to go to the battery. So you can run one individual power wire to the battery. I split them. So relays 1 and relays 3 get tied together. And then relays 2 and 4 get tied together. Then you can run 2 10 gauges to the battery from here. And when I make my harnesses, I'll show you guys, I just tin these with solder, and then to get these to the battery, it's up to you. You can run, run your own power cable, what have you. So now, this is where it gets kind of tricky. So remember I told you the fan switch. The fan switch is ground activated, and these last two relays are for the fan. So here's the ground input on the relays. I'm going to tie those together, and those are going to go to the fan switch wire. So that way when the fan switch closes, it activates both relays, turns on both fans. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky, but I think I can walk you guys through this pretty easily. So again, I told you, whatever comes into here, when this relay is energized, comes out here. So this is going to be output from the battery on relay 1. And I want it to go to the input on all 3 relays. That's going to be the 12-volt side of the other 3 relays. And it's also going to provide 12-volt battery output through the relay for our power, for our harness. So how we're going to do this is kind of just twist these together. Tie these together halfway, halfway. And they are going to get soldered together. And they are going to be, that's basically our power output. It's sending power out of this relay and to anything we tie it to going that way, and to the input of the other 3 relays. That's going to get soldered to that. I'll extend it a little further so these sit up here. But I'm going to go ahead and tin these up so they're out of the way. If you guys got any relay questions, jump in the chat. Soldering wise, I don't use anything but Weller. I used to use a Hecco, and I didn't care for it. I just love Weller products. So, not a plug. They don't pay me for anything or ask me to talk about their products. But for soldering, for me, it's always Weller. I have Weller at home. We have Weller at Glamis Fab. We have Wellers at San Lamo, and then at the other shop I work out of, my buddy Barry's shop, we use Weller there as well. This one is just my basic at-home soldering iron. I do have one that's temperature controlled, but this one is not. This is just a plug-in. And this is old. I've had this thing for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Still works like a champ. So, all right, we got those tinned up. And like I said, we're not going to solder those to anything. You can put a butt crimp on there and run a 10 gauge up to the battery. That's what you need there for both of those. Now, we got our power input, our outputs. I'm going to go ahead and solder that up. Power. All right, cool. And then we have our ground input for the fan switch, from the fan switch. Those are these 2 tied together. Got those down, so we'll tin that one up. I can actually go ahead and tin all of these up. That was tin, and this is going to be the fuel pump wire. We'll get to that in a minute. The output of the, see, that's another thing. So a lot of guys don't know that plug that I talked about earlier in the video, this A plug, or CE plug, whatever you want to call it, I think it's A plug. This has the output for the fuel pump. Turns the fuel pump off and on. You can wire the fuel pump on directly, but why? It's just more wear and tear on your pump. Honda, likes to control the pump. It turns it off and on while you're driving. It also has the tack wire, and it also has the wire for the OBD2 diagnostic port in it. So those are the only 3 I use out of here. We'll jump over to those in just a second, because we're actually going to need those here in just a minute. All right. So your relay pack, ECU is going to mount. Relay pack's probably going to go somewhere here. Now that this part's done, this is all soldered up, I'm going to go ahead and start to form these. So I'll unplug this one from the ECU. And from the factory, these were taped, and I cut them open. So we're just going to tape them up again. Tape them down right to where they junction, right there. Plug that one back in, grab this one. Gonna do the same thing, tape her up. That kind of cleans these back up and gives them a factory look, because they're going to get tied together with our A plug. Actually, I don't think it's A. I think it's E. I know in K series it's E. No, it's A. It is the A connector. So, anyways, like I said earlier, now we're going to start with the A plug. It's the E connector on K series, A plug on J series. 3 wires. So when I get these, they're fully, I pull them out of the cars. I just clip them off because this plug's not part of the wire harness. It's part of the chassis harness. So most guys, when you order this wire harness, all guys, it doesn't come with this plug. So that's why earlier I said you'll find guys making these harnesses and filling that thing with hot glue and gluing wires in there. No bueno. I don't like that. So I use the same technique I showed you guys earlier. Pop these open, gut out everything that I'm not going to use. These 3 wires I'm going to use. So, we'll go ahead and plug that in. This one's the fuel pump wire. So we're going to need to extend that all the way over to the relays. They're going to be over here to turn the fuel pump on. This one's for the OBD2 diagnostic port. We're going to leave that one out. I'm going to show you that towards the end. And then this one's for the tack wire. So we're going to extend a blue wire onto here, and it's going to jump out with some of these other wires that are going to get just dead-ended in here. So first thing I'm going to do, take the wires that I'm going to use and I'm going to strip them. Strip, strip, strip. Twist them up a bit. I know some of you anti-solder guys are probably cringing right now. It's just what it is. We all do things a little differently. So again, I'm going to prep these, just get them tinned up. If you guys like these live videos, man, drop me a thumbs up. Let me know. Drop a comment. Let me know if you like live stuff. I am going to be, I'm in the middle of filming some stuff on my Chevelle right now. The transmission's out getting gone through, but I will go live from the dyno. If you guys want to see my car get tuned on the dyno, we'll do that too. And I got a lot going on in the background. Like I said in some of my previous videos, my Honda motor, my V-Series Honda motors out at PFI Speed in Colorado, and they're working on it. My drive shaft on its way. Jamie ordered my slicks, so we're getting everything ready for Rocky Mountain Race Week, which is coming up real soon. So all right, so I'm going to need a blue wire. I'm going to need a green wire. So again, I'm going to refer down here to my pile of spare wire. There's a green. You can cut it off of that plug. And how about blue? How about blue with white? That works. It doesn't have to be the exact same color, because when I finish my harnesses, I write right on the ECU the color code of what goes where. You're really making me want another turbo VW. Yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, if you're still watching, that car that I bought is no joke, dude. That thing is fast, fast, fast. Like I think it might be faster than my Honda. My Honda made 6, and this bug is as fast, if not faster, than my Honda. Although We are going to turn my Honda up this year. That's why the motor's getting gone through. But yeah, this bug that I bought is no joke. From what I was told by the previous owner, actually the guy who built the car, and by Ron Loomis himself, I talked to Ron about the car. I've actually known Ron Loomis since I was a kid. I got introduced to him, and I got introduced into the whole VW world from my buddy Jason. Back when I lived in California, his dad ran a shop called Classy Chassis, and he was a chassis builder. And I think he built Ron Loomis's first car. He built a ton of drag bugs back in the day, so I was kind of exposed to that, when I was younger as a teenager. And that's where I got to meet Ron, and then did a bunch of import drag racing over the years with NHRA and IDRC and Nopi, and with my Honda stuff. And Ron also raced those same series and events, and just knew each other for over the years. So I called him actually when I bought this car to make sure they weren't feeding me a line of crap about what was done to it and who built it. And he was able to confirm everything for me. He did a lot of work on this car. A lot of his products are on this car, that's for sure. So again, I'm gonna only use these 2 wires. I'm gonna tape this up all the way past the tape junction or heat shrink junction, whichever you do. Usually I heat shrink them, but this one I'm just gonna tape for right now, just to show you guys how to do this. And then what I like to do is I'll go ahead and put this in here and tape it in there as well, so it kind of looks kind of factory-ish. Kind of go for that OEM factory look here. Again, like I said, being in desert and off-road and stuff, I like things to be as OEM as possible, especially when it comes to Honda. First and foremost, you can pretty much go to any AutoZone or O'Reilly's and get yourself a coil pack or an injector or anything like that, or connectors for that matter. So again, working out at Glamis Fab all these years, I see guys come in with electric water pumps that have failed, all this aftermarket stuff that fails, and their weekends get ruined because we don't have the parts to support them, or they can't get them in town. They've got to order from Jegs or what have you. So we try to keep, even in my car with my LS, I like to keep everything as factory as I can. All right, so now you guys see we've got this all cleaned up. It's almost ready to be loomed back up and taped. We just need to make our connections to our relays. No more questions? All right, cool. We'll move on. So the blue and white wire, that's the tack wire. That's going to stay out here. The green wire is the fuel pump. The fuel pump activation wire is this second relay. It's black. So like I said, remember, it's getting power from here when this relay gets activated, and then when it sees ground come into here, it's going to send 12 volts out to this blue wire, which is going to go to the fuel pump. So when my harnesses go out, I know 99% of the guys that make these Honda harnesses do not include relays. They tell you to do it yourself. I make it easier. You just need to run this wire right to your fuel pump, 12 volt. This wire here needs to go to one fan, that one needs to go to the other, and you're done. Simple hookup, simple, easy. Like I said, my harnesses always include the relays. So we're going to measure that out to about right there. Give this a clip. Twist her up, and then solder it in. Tin this up. There we go. I'm going to cut this a little short because those are long. There we go. Alright, so the fuel pump's done. Now when the ignition turns on, the ECU power's on, the fuel pump's going to prime just like it should from the factory. And again, like I said, doing everything as factory as possible, and then also letting the ECU control the fuel pump, and more importantly, letting the ECU or the fan switch control the fans. That way, you don't forget to turn your fan switch on when you're driving. You don't have any idea how many people I know of overheated motors in the desert because they forgot to flip the fan switch on. So I like to let the factory control it for me. That way I don't have to worry about it. So next, pull those blue wires out of the bottom here. Next on the relay pack, since the fans are done, we're going to run this next green one up here, and this is going to, or the fuel pump's done. This is going to be activation for the fans. So same thing, clip this. That back a little bit, it's so long. Now, some of you guys watching are Honda guys. If you remember some of the old forums from back in the day, pgmfi.org and the FF Squad, we were part of those forums. My friend John and I actually made the very first, I guarantee you, no one had ever done it before us. We made the very first OBD0 to OBD1 conversion harness. We actually, John's car got done first, and we put a complete, like 93 Del Sol wire harness in his car. And then my car, we left all the 89, 90, I think mine was a 90. All the 90 wiring in there, we clipped the ECU plugs and went book for book and converted my car to OBD1. I think my car was the first one done, like that was converted, like not completely ripped out and changed. All right, so I think we're just about done here, guys. Tack wires here. We need to extend our power wire up to here. And then I'm going to show you what else to do. And then we have to add in the OBD diagnostic plug. So let me get some wires set up so I can solder a jumper in here for the power. And then we can keep moving forward. Some of these harnesses that I've got from some of the other builders, they tie all these power wires together and they run one single wire out here to power everything. I like to double it up just to have a little bit more gauge and a little more oomph. It was a 90, that's right, our Civic was a 90. So, it just shows you that my Honda experience wasn't from yesterday. So we started making OBD0 to OBD1 jumper harnesses for Honda Civics, and nobody was making the female connector. We could get the OBD1 connectors, no problem. We could order them right from AMP, and they would ship them right to you. But the OBD0 connector female side, the only way you could find it was getting an OBD0 ECU and desoldering it and cutting it out of an ECU. And then we made a jig where we'd hold the connector upside down, solder everything, test it, and then pour epoxy in it so no one could copy them. Now you can buy one of those on eBay or Amazon for like 50 bucks or for 30 bucks. But soldering for a long, long time. Again, I always pull, make sure they're not going to break away. So stoked. My first boat was a 67, so stoked when you get yours. Ron Lewis, VW Racing. Mine was a 56 all 2330 turbo. Now 370 AJ at low budget speed. Oh yeah, I've heard of them before. Yeah. Yeah, I've been in the Volkswagen game a long time, man. I've just been out of it for a long time. And I had bought that blue 67, if you guys seen it in my other videos. Actually, on Friday, I was at or Saturday, I was at a Cars and Coffee at Doug's Bugs and Bunnies here in Mesa. And VW Trends was out there. You know, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but VW Trends is a magazine again. You can actually go and subscribe to it, and they'll send a magazine right to your house like they used to back in the day. And they're going to do a write-up on my on the blue car that got taken from me and that I got back. So we're going to write an article about it, which I thought was pretty cool. This is where this gets tricky because there's so many wires here that I'm tying together, and this soldering iron doesn't get crazy hot, but you just hold them on there long enough, it'll melt it. There it goes. Need a little bit more juice in here. Joe always tells me that soldering is like TIG welding. I don't see the correlation, but because I can't TIG weld to save my life. I can MIG weld pretty good, but TIGging is rough. All right. Johnny, Harvey, have you ever modded a Subaru computer? No, I haven't. I don't know that those can be modified or not. I'm not really sure. I know that in all the Subaru stuff we do with buggies, they take the stock Subaru stuff out and they run the Link ECU, and those seem to work pretty well. And we use John from Outfront or Outback or whatever it's called. I think it's Outfront now. It used to be Outback, now it's Outfront. Outfront Motorsports. He does all of our Subaru stuff, and he's really good, and he makes a lot of power with those things. I don't know if there's much of a market for Subaru stock ECU modifying, but all right, guys. So we're pretty much out of the woods here. We're pretty clear. We've got our power feeding the harness and the ECU, feeding the relays. So where we're at with the relays is I'll end up taping all this together. Matter of fact, I might as well go ahead and do that now. There we go. Tape those up, because that's all that's going to go to the relay packs from our harness. And again, guys, you can lube this up, tape it, whatever. Like I said before, if you're going to tape it, use good tape. You'll thank yourself for it. So go like this, loop that over, and then I'm going to loop it under so it gives it a spot to kind of come out of the harness. Okay, so it looks kind of factory how it leaves the harness, and it's taped on both sides. So what we have left here, guys, should be 4 wires. And these 4 wires, I'm going to do the same thing. I probably should have done it out of there, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and tape these like this. Start running it back. And then over. And don't get me wrong, I can make a mil-spec motorsports harness that's completely from scratch, and I've done it. They're just very expensive and not cost-effective. But I can do it. I have done it. But for this J35 stuff, we're using a stock ECU, especially if you're running an AEM. If you want to tune the car, it's turbo. AEM computers plug and play. So nothing to change but some injectors if you're going big with turbo, and start tuning. So this makes it really easy. So we've got 4 wires left out of here, guys, now. So those 4 wires are going to be ECU memory, 12 volts, output for the tach, your alternator light, and your oil light. So this stuff will go to the chassis. What we have here is you're going to put 12 volts to both of these red wires. Those go to the battery, directly to the battery, like a 10 gauge on each one. And at least like a 40 amp fuse on each one. And then I've got 430s on the relays. So what's left over are the outputs from the relays, your blues. Let me run this one down here also. So now that this is done, you're going to have this blue wire goes to your fuel pump 12 volts. This blue wire goes to your fan 12 volt. This blue wire goes to your other fan 12 volt. That leaves us with these 2. This is our activation for the entire relay pack now. You're going to ground this and you're going to run this to your ignition switch. You ground this and send 12 volts to this wire. This relay is going to click, and it's going to power up the entire harness after you put battery power on these. And that's literally it, guys. That's an entire harness that's been gutted. I mean, mind you, I'm still going to lube this up, tape it up nice. I'll post some pictures of it when I'm done. But what I do want to add while we're still on live is the OBD2 diagnostic port. Where did they go? Let me jump up and see if I can find it there. Give me a second, guys. Let me say I buy my relays in bulk, box after box after box. Where are my diagnostic ports? I probably should have pulled one out before I started this deal. Anyways, you can buy your OBD diagnostic ports online, Amazon, wherever. This wire is the K-line wire. What I run to my diagnostic port is 12 volts, ground, and K-line. And that's it. That's all you need. All the communications that goes into the OBD2 reader comes from one wire, and it's right here. You have to run power and ground in the diagnostic port in order to power on your scanner. But this is it right here, one wire, and it's called K-line. This ties to the K-line wire in the OBD2 diagnostic port. I believe it's pin 7. And then pin 1 and then 4 and 5. 1 is power, and I think 4 and 5 are ground. But I had some ports here, I just can't find them. So, anyways, guys, that's about it. That's literally how you make a standalone harness. Now you're gonna put the harness on the motor. Power. Oh, you know what? So, what I'm gonna do, guys, is I know I haven't said I was ever gonna do this, but I'm gonna show you how to mod the ECU. Forgot about that part. So, I got an unmodified ECU that I picked up right here. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole modification of this harness deal. Let me wipe all this down. We'll get this thing opened up. And here's the deal. So VTEC will not work right now because there's certain parameters in a factory Honda ECU that have to be met in order for VTEC to work. One is the coolant temperature has to be over 100 and something degrees. I don't know what the exact number is. The oil pressure has to be over X amount with the VTEC pressure switch. And then the vehicle speed has to be over a certain mile per hour in order for VTEC to work. Well, in a standalone system where we're using a Mendiola or a Volkswagen bus tranny, you don't have a speed sensor. So I can't tie the speed sensor to the ECU. So what I do, open this thing up and show you guys. There's another plug here, the very last plug, and I don't use this one. There's nothing in there I need except for the VTEC. And what we do is, I'll show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a couple of these pins out. I'm going to cut these top 3 right here. I'm going to cut out one. Let me show you before they're cut. So right here, you get down there so you guys can see. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to cut those middle 3 pins out. I'll show you guys why here in just a second. Alright, so in order to make VTEC work, we have to tie the crank sensor, which is in this connector, to the speed sensor. And we have to fool the ECU into thinking that the car's seeing a speed signal, and that way VTEC will work. It took me years to figure out how to do this. I'm not going to give you guys the pin numbers. I'm just going to show you how I do it. Some guys get this connector and they tie it to the wires in here. I do it in the ECU for simplicity. That way, no matter where you take this ECU, VTEC will always work. And you know, you always want to be cracking VTEC, yo. So I'm going to take a piece of wire here, and I'm going to strip both ends. I'm just going to make a loop. The information is out there on the web on how to do this. I encourage you to go find it. Like I said, I'm not going to give you guys the exact pin numbers. It took me a long time to figure that out. I'm also not going to show you how to disable the immobilizer in an ECU, because essentially I would be live on YouTube telling you guys how to steal a car. So as you can see, for ethical reasons, I'm not going to do that. If you're building a car legitimately and you want to talk with me about how to do it, I can kind of point you in the right direction. Send me a PM, show me your car, show me your off-road car, but by no means am I going to show you guys how to disable a immobilizer. So I'm going to go ahead and tin this up to solder my jumper in. 1, 2, 3. By me saying 1, 2, 3, it's not that those aren't the pin numbers. That's just me counting my own pin count. So I'm going to solder this jumper in right there. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can solder a jumper right to these pins. Sometimes when I get tricky and fancy and try to hide it from people, I take the bottom of the ECU board, I take the bottom cover off, and I jump it right on the board. So for all intents and purposes, if any of you guys have ever seen these before and opened up your ECU, you're going to see a jumper right here. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you the pin numbers. You can find that out yourself. The information is there on how to do it. I kind of told you guys how to do it a few minutes ago and what wires to tie to what components. Got soldered in there again so it doesn't break out. So there it is, guys. This is what will make VTEC work all the time. It took me almost 2 years to figure out all I needed was one piece of wire to make VTEC work. Go figure, huh? So anyways, guys, that's about it. That's everything on how to make one of these harnesses. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Any more questions before we drop off of here? Nope, that's it. Well, cool, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching my channel. I appreciate it. We're going to jump off here, and that was a live on how to make a harness. Like I said, we're going to put the loom back up on here, get it all taped up factory nice, and this thing will be shipping out to a customer tomorrow. So thanks, guys, for joining, and stick around. I'll have some more video content coming up later in the week as soon as the transmission shop calls about my transmission for my Chevelle. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.